He's coming, but it's gonna be later.
You're unmuting us.
You are good to go.
There's two and two.
All right, since the hour has arrived, we will call this meeting to order, the Land Use and Planning Committee. This agenda was posted in the office of the Washington County Clerk on the 18th day of March, 2022. Notice was sent to the Washington County Daily News, Express News, WIBD, MBZ Radio, TKM Radio, My Community Now, Hartford Times Press, Keewasin Statesman, and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Supervisor Schulteis and Mary and Supervisor Chairman Creefall are here, as well as Mr. Strupp. Supervisors Krebs and Gallants are excused. With that, please, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. Now, we're going to make some tweaks to the order of the presentations. We'll proceed with the public hearing first, and then the County Executive Showman wishes to address the group regarding discussion items D regarding the ARPA funds to Next Generation Housing, as well as action item 6, the resolution to amend 2022-27 Capital Improvement Plan Brownfield Investment. He may be in later this morning, so we'll move past those items for now and go to those, take up those discussion points when he joins us. With that, we'll move to the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the notice, please.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held at meeting of the Washington County Land Use and Planning Committee in room 2024 of the Washington County Government Center, 432 East Washington Street, West Bend, Wisconsin, on Thursday, March 24th, 2022 at 7:30 a.m. There will be heard and considered the petition of Sunset Farms, Inc., care of Bernard Wolf for a conditional use permit for associated filling, grading, and excavating of greater than 15,000 square feet within 300 feet of the ordinary high watermark OHWM of Limestone Creek, raise existing agriculture buildings and restore the cropland in a shoreland, wetland, and floodplain zoning district location, southeast quarter of Section 20, Town of Addison, T1 0483, address 5752 State Highway 175, Hartford, Wisconsin 53027, dated this 25th day of February 2022.
Thank you, sir. I've asked Mr. Seabo to be here this morning, just very briefly explain the detail of this application and answer any questions that might arise. Mr. Seabo, please.
Yes, so the maps that are presented, and it's kind of highlighted and stuff in there, crosshatched, that there's an existing set of buildings, an old barnyard, couple silos that are all within the shoreline zone. The applicants, the Wolves, are actually planning on tearing all those out, basically recycling the concrete if they can find a way to recycle it, get it crushed up or else bury it on site and restore the area to kind of a grass field for now. So this is probably one of the more beneficial projects coming in the shoreline zone because we're actually taking out impervious surface in the area. The second map that I actually attached in the packet shows that the existing floodplain zone is like halfway through the building, but we do have a draft floodplain study that's been in the works for several years. We have draft maps, and that's a little picture on the bottom of the map, is that the proposed floodplain, once that new study is adopted, will actually be outside of all the building areas, much tighter to the river, especially on the north side of Limestone Creek there. So any questions, I'll be willing to answer.
Any questions from any of the supervisors? Mr. Strupp? No. Hearing none, we will now close this public hearing and move to action on the items. This hearing is closed. We will entertain a motion and second from the committee to approve the conditional use permit for Sunset Farms as presented, including the installation and maintenance of needed erosion control practices as identified in the materials present. Those in favor say aye. Oh, yes. So moved. All right.
Second.
All right. We'll vote on that. We have a motion and a second. We'll now have a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The permit is granted. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here with us this morning, gentlemen. We'll now move to the consent agenda, and the only item of which is the minutes of the February 24 minutes. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is vote to say aye or nay? Aye. So approved. On to the discussion items, starting with the report from our Register of Deeds.
There is a report that was presented in the packet. It is, PRIA is the Property Records Industry Association. They hold 2 national conferences a year. Due to COVID, they postponed the strategic planning. So they decided to add it on 2 days before this conference. So it was out in Arizona. It's a great learning experience. It's a great way to network and share what Wisconsin is doing, plus learn what all the other states are doing. So I thank you for the opportunity to go to this every year. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I do. You've mentioned in your report that the meetings are being held virtually. Do you see? Yes.
They offer a virtual option to the
Okay.
meeting. The strategic planning was done in person. The majority of the attendees, because in February there was still some COVID restrictions, it's hard to network virtually for these types of events.
Yes.
They do try to have some virtual social events, but the majority of the attendees were there in person.
And you were attending in person?
I did, yes.
Very good. All right, I wasn't clear on that.
Oh, sorry, yes, I was there in person.
I also noticed that June 4th has been declared Register of Deeds Day.
A couple of years ago, correct. In 2020, we looked back into the history of the Register of Deeds. And it goes back that far. We're at 104 years. And we're over 100 years old.
But if I could just personally ask you to remind me when the time approaches, we'll somehow arrange to acknowledge it at your department on that day on June 4th.
Absolutely, thank you.
You're very welcome. And aside, and I just made these notes yesterday, has anyone noticed how often Washington County personnel are continually being asked by their peers or noted by their peers with awards, or in this case, in Sharon's situation, been named to a national committee? It's happening more and more all the time. Perhaps if you don't read through all the reports that the various committees give to us, I think this speaks well of the caliber of employees we have at Washington County, the professionalism, the creativity of ideas that are being adopted and accepted nationwide and regional wide. And I think this goes to all the employees across all the departments. We've got a phenomenal group of people here. And we've just seen this more and more and more. And there's even some more stuff coming down, which you're not aware of yet, where we're getting state and national recognition for the employees, for their creativity, for their leadership, and just plainly their professionalism. I just want to thank you, Sharon, and congratulations to you and to everybody who gets this kind of acknowledgement. I think it speaks well for Washington County. So. Next item on our agenda is a presentation by Carol Relic. Relic. I wasn't sure.
It's one of the two.
All right, please, the floor is yours.
Okay. That's fine.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Just sharing an update with my program area, which is Human Development and Relationships with UW-Madison Division of Extension. So I was just thinking about how long I've been in Washington County. Coming up in September, I'll be 10 years here in Washington County with Extension, and 3 years before that in Ozaki too. And today I just wanted to highlight some of the financial programming that I do as an educator. And really, as I started thinking about what to share, wanted to share that we have kind of a good financial palette, I guess is what I would say, of a variety of audiences that we service on our programs, as well as the modes or formats that we offer as well. So included in the packet was a summary, like an impact report for the one I'm probably going to focus on the most. And it's called Money Matters Online, and it's something that's been around for probably 3-4 years. I personally was not a part of developing the original modules, but it is all online. So it's like a self-study type of a format. I probably shared a little bit about it in previous years. Folks that take a quiz. When they take a quiz, I get an email saying they completed the quiz, and if they're interested in financial coaching going along with that, I can contact them. So that was there, and it's always been a resource, and I kept sharing it. And finally, I got a phone call from the coordinator at Forward Careers at the Department of Workforce Development, and they received a grant to do the Work and Wheels program, which is a 0% vehicle loan program. So they take care of all the loan, the eligibility, those kinds of pieces, but they needed an education piece for those participants to do in order to get the loan, the program. So she contacted me, and I said, well, I've got this, and that was just when COVID was starting and you needed something online. So we set up and coordinated what would work best for the participants or clients, and what would meet their needs as well. So we're kind of filling that educational financial piece or gap. So basically, we drew up what they needed for the requirements. There's about, I think there's 11 or 12 modules online right now. And the 4 that they are required to take are first like a needs assessment, like a strengths of where they're at with their finances to help them self-reflect. And then there's one on spending plans or budgets, credit, and what if I'm behind on bills is what it's called. So they have to do those. Then I know they complete it by getting those emails in my inbox, kind of take a look if there's some pieces that were challenging for them. Excuse me, I take note of that. And then I schedule a financial coaching call. So each of those participants have a contact with me. And basically, I start off saying, what questions do you have after going through this information? And there's always some pieces I make sure that they understand, so to speak. I mean, it's a loan, so the credit piece is important, right? But honestly, they bring up probably what they need the most and cover things I probably would have brought up anyway. So it's been really enlightening, and I think for them, motivational to move forward by having that conversation. And they just didn't realize this is something they could do and contact someone to talk about. So from there, if we talked about some resources they weren't aware of, I do a follow-up email, send some more information. I say, hey, if you need to contact me again and follow up, that's not part of the Work and Wheels, but I offer that as well. A couple have taken me up on that. And we send a certificate. So that certificate goes to the coordinator, to them. Coordinator knows they completed the educational piece. And then they can proceed with the pieces of the loan, working with that coordinator. Now, what I sent was, like I said, kind of impact. This is kind of a 1-year anniversary snapshot. So it started in November of 20 through October 31st of 2021. Just curious what it would do in a year. So it gives some information there. Just so you're also aware, it does include, because of Workforce Development Center, the WOW County, so Washington, Ozaukee, and Waukesha. That's how they were structured, and they were able to make that work on the extension side as well. I'm just trying to think other pieces to share. But if you look at one of the pie charts, half of them are from Washington County. So we have a good mix there as well. And in case you're wondering, as far as my time, once it's set up with a partner, like with Forward Careers, I always want to say that Forward Services, but it's Forward Careers, it really takes me probably no more than an hour per participant. So it really kind of rolls through unless they, want some other pieces for that. Any questions on this particular program?
I have anybody question, Don, anybody? Comment, I noticed that 64% of the attendees are women.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments on that? I mean, and the age groups?
Yeah, we don't have age on here. I guess we didn't really track that. I get the information, the demographics from Forward Careers, from the coordinators, because I don't ask that specifically because they already take that information. Not sure on the age. I would say the majority are, just thinking through, I would say 20s to 50s or so. I think.
So this isn't a bunch of kids?
No.
Okay.
No. It is, for whatever reason, they're struggling with those things. And then last November, December, we had like 4 or 5 per month. It was kind of averaging 2, 3 per month. So I was surprised we were getting that many more. January slowed down, I think, with the holidays. A couple in February, and now in March haven't had any. When I connected with the coordinator, she said, yeah, it's really slowing down. I mean, look what's happening with inflation and cars that are even available, used cars that are safe. They're not as readily available. And she said one of the requirements on their end for eligibility is they need to have a stable home. And there's been some contacting that are homeless and, they don't have a job, and that doesn't work for the loan peers. So there are some challenges out there for folks that probably could use the program, but they have some other needs to work on first too.
Well, your comments there add a different perspective to what's presented here. The fact that you perhaps have a homeless situation, and again,
Yeah.
economically, it just can't afford to buy anything right now.
Yeah,
But I was just impressed with the female participation in this. And
Yeah.
the fact that also, as you said, these aren't a bunch of kids. These are mature people, so.
yeah. And, as I talk with them with the coaching piece, you just kind of learn what's all going on. That's all confidential, so I don't share that, but you can tell, as they set their goals, they're thinking about their priorities and trying to figure out what they have to do first in order to move forward. A lot of them had either career aspirations or where they wanted to go to school, and to fit that extra cost into their budget and a vehicle, and you might be moving away from home or whatever it might be too. So, so it's one aspect of their budget that can be helpful with that.
Yeah, Carol, great report. I'm wondering what the number is. You have percent, so the number, the N for this.
Yeah,
timeframe.
so if you look at the first page, 22 is that received the
okay.
certificates.
Okay,
And then you'll notice on the bottom, it says 19 of those 22 successfully completed and received a loan. So I asked the coordinator about that too. She shared all that information. It could be that they just went elsewhere to get the loan for whatever reason, or didn't. I think there was one that just didn't finish the process, which, on a whole, that's pretty good. I think if one just wasn't ready. And if there was one that applied, didn't go through with the online piece or the coaching, but then now this year in February, she came back and was ready. So, they have to be at a point where they're ready to move forward. So that was encouraging.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, in one of these programs, no one knows anything about unless you get deeply involved with it.
Yeah, and I've been trying to share the Working Wheels piece that comes from Forward Careers, because I'm not sure if everybody knows about that either, to kind of show the partnership that's happening there too. So that was my highlight focus. Just wanted to also let you know, and I know I've talked about this other one previously. It's encouraging financial conversations. So the difference is the audience is professionals like social workers from agencies, departments, and I work, I guess I would say regionally with some colleagues of mine. In fact, today around noontime, we did kind of a lunch and learn. It's a series of 6 sessions. We're finishing up a current session. So I've got some folks from this area, from Head Start, interested from Albert Free Clinic, who's another person from ADRC, and a few others that are in this current session. It's basically meant for professionals who work with clients, and probably for even another reason in social work, but they also have financial concerns. So this is building their capacity to talk about financial concerns of their clients, as well as their own personal confidence is what we're seeing in some of the feedback that we're getting. So this is a good example of kind of the research and the group development, or the extension educators working together from the state level down and being able to bring that to a local or regional level and have that impact. And also what it's doing, I'm doing this training, it's 6 sessions, I'm only teaching 2 of the 6. So it's spreading out our time efficiently and also bringing in the expertise of the other colleagues. So we're trying to maximize that a little bit as well. And they've been done virtually. And this is the 3rd set that we've done in the past year and a half, I want to say. So we're seeing some good results for that as well. The up and coming thing that you'll be hearing more about is called Planning Ahead. And there's a financial component to that. I've been a part of 2 pilots with Sheboygan County. We've had some participants, just consumers, but also we've had some organizational professionals take that, and one is from our ADRC, Jennifer Fector, and she doesn't want to say her name, but because we're going to be partnering, and because she took it from the pilot, we are having a training in April, and I'm going to be kind of coaching a little bit with that too, with her, and we're going to hopefully offer that either fall into next year. And really it's just giving folks kind of this awareness of what do I all need to think about before end of life. And for one, we all know it's not a topic that most of us want to talk about with our families. So that's one of the goals. And the other goal is by planning ahead, you're not leaving your loved ones or family members behind with this non-organized amount of paperwork and what to do, because they're going to be grieving in other ways emotionally and things like that too. And I don't have copies for everyone because this is kind of hot off the press, but folks that are part of this will be receiving, I'm not sure if we're going to be doing hard copies or off online. And at the point we're ready to do that, I can share more with this. But literally, as you can see, lots of lots of pages. I was not necessarily part of creating this, so my colleagues are, but I was part of the pilot and giving feedback because I was co-facilitating for the pilot, giving feedback and help creating the evaluation so we can see what impact it's making. So just so for an idea, hang on, sorry about that. Topics are just getting started. Where do you start? How do you organize? Handling financial changes, so I had a part in that. Advanced medical legal directives, estate planning, choice and end-of-life care, final wishes, and understanding grief. So all those topics, we're not claiming to be experts, but it's more that awareness, where to start. We give the resources, a lot of DHS forms are online for Wisconsin. They can start there. If it's a specific question, we try to gear them towards that resource or you may need to talk to an attorney. It's not something you might want to do on your own. And as you know, there's a lot of different specific situations that might occur. So that's up and coming, and so I will keep you posted on how that goes. Kind of excited about it. So, any questions?
How many years for you?
Oh, here in Washington County?
Yeah,
10, almost 10 in September. Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes, Deb?
I just had a quick question. Does that cover, like personal property?
Yes and no. It's not, like I said, we're not going to get into all the details and things like that, but we do talk about some of those things and where to look for some of the information. Yeah, and actually it's already online, so I can actually send you that. It's downloadable and like fillable. So like some of the, where you can keep track of all your expenses or and passwords, and there's a whole bunch of different forms and stuff. So yeah, that's another thing I can do too.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the Department of Natural Resources report.
I was gonna say Jamie is gone, so yeah, Paul and Logan can handle any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on actually giving a presentation or anything on the report, but we'll answer any questions unless Logan has something specific he wants to point out.
No, same. I'll just take questions if you have any.
I do.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Regarding the dog park at Homestead Hollow, it says because of the weather conditions and the Mucky and Don and I were having a conversation earlier about there's some lowlands in there. Of course, kids are like dogs, or dogs are like kids. The first thing they do is run from the water, splash in the water. But are we somehow posting when things are closed, or does someone have to drive out from the falls or wherever else they're coming from to get here and find that it's closed? How does the public have access to whether or not something is closed or open or?
Yeah, our interim business services manager has been posting on our social media pages to notify the public of when our dog parks are closed. They've been closed for a week or two now. Ever since we really started getting a lot of this warm weather and rain in that pattern, it's important to try to keep as many people off of there as we can because it'll lead to some long-term issues out there. They're highly used and if you get a bunch of dogs out there, it just turns it into a giant mud pit, and then we got to go in and reseed everything and do some grounds work out there. So
just a normal springtime activity, like you got the weight limits on the road set?
Yep, it happens every year.
Okay, all right.
As long as there's still some frost in the ground and it's not.
Yeah, water can't go down.
Water's not going in.
No, and as soon as we get a little drier weather, we'll reopen them. But so far, we've just been caught in a pattern of a lot of rain and wet conditions, and I think already this week we've gotten an inch of rain so far, so it's just not good for ground conditions out there.
I realize people can go to the dog parks really anytime they want to. Do we have any real information on the traffic we're getting?
I could probably find that. Trying to think, we do have specific dog park passes, like, our parks passes that people can buy annually.
Right.
they can purchase one that has like the disc golf symbol on it or the dog park. And that's kind of how we track our users and what amenities they like, is they can purchase those specific passes. I mean, it's still an annual pass for all of our parks, but it's kind of like, what's your favorite activity pass? And that's how we try to track users at some of those venues.
I think it would be an interesting thing to note, whether we do it publicly or just with this committee, but just to know what kind of usage are we getting at the different parks?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the numbers are very high. I'd like to think they are.
They've been increasing. Before I did our budget last year, we did look at those, and we ranked our parks. Sandy Knoll, I know, was our #1 used park, and we were able to see based on daily and annual purchases, which parks got the most usage. So that data is out there and available. We just have to regularly analyze it.
Yeah, I'm sure Sandy Knoll draws a great deal from the West Bend area, but like Homestead Hollow, do we have any way of knowing who's coming in from the Falls or Milwaukee or other Milwaukee area suburbs to use our facility? I'm curious as to what kind of outside usage, overall usage, but also particularly like Homestead Hollow, the outside usage we were getting. I mean, don't do anything special, don't spend any money or time on a report, but I think at some point in time, it'd be interesting to have that kind of data.
Yeah, we've broken that down before too, because when people buy their passes, they put in their addresses.
Correct.
So we can sort that data and look at where their addresses are and kind of figure out where people are coming from to our different parks.
Okay, thank you. One other question also, referencing the situation with the flooring in the hall at Glacier Hills. Is this buckling something new, or is this a seasonal thing as the frost comes out and things move around? And I question also, indicates something more, does this something indicate a more serious situation with the foundation of the building? And in that regard, is $50,000 seems like an awful lot of money just to replace a floor.
Yeah, so I began noticing this issue in the fall, where, and if you want to see it, I got some pictures on my phone too, but a lot of these, the floor was a glue down wood floor. And where the seams would come together, they're starting to kind of curl up. And I noticed that last fall. And I had originally when I noticed that, I put it in our capital outlay for 2024. I was hoping that would last a little longer. And then this winter I got in there and it started getting worse. There was noticeable lips that are up, a quarter to a half inch. And some pieces have actually started to separate laterally too. So you got all these gaps now in that floor, and it poses a real tripping hazard. And then I went out there and I sent some of these, I took pictures and I sent them to a flooring company just to ask, start getting an idea of, what's the best solution for this, what's causing this, and, what can we do about it? And I think the floor is 4 or 5 years old, and they suspect that it could have been from water damage since it was a wood floor and not a laminate floor. And then they provided me some generic price per square foot cost estimates. That floor in there is a little over 4,000 square feet. And if you were to lay a new floor over that, it was going to be around, I think it was like $7 a square foot, which was only, $28,000, $29,000. But I have a feeling, and again, this is something that somebody's going to have to go out there and determine. If you have to tear it up, that's going to add cost. So that I added that cost on of removing that floor, resanding the subfloor, and installing a new one. A laminate floor that's not wood where water damage would be an issue.
Having been a homeowner and also having some exposure to outside buildings like that, I can't help but think that moisture is a problem. If you got a solid wood floor and glued down, and I don't know how you're gonna start doing a roof over on a house, you can do it once. But I'm wondering if we're getting that much curling and you aren't doing anything to alleviate the cause, you aren't gonna be better off to go all the way down, strip it down to the base frame, as you saying, and start something with a different kind of substance surface. on the
Yeah, we just released an RFP for it, and I worked closely with a local flooring company. I'm trying to remember the name. They're just south of Menards down there. I'm drawing a blank on their name right now.
I know
But
who you, I think.
yeah, I went in there and talked to them about it, showed them the pictures again. And they recommended there are like commercial grade floors with protective layers on there. They recommended a 20 to 30 millimeter protective layer that goes over the laminate floor. And that floor comes with a 10-year warranty on it. So I feel more comfortable with a contractor that can have that sort of warranty on those floors. And I expressed the high volume usage we get out there. I mean,
Right.
that place is rented every single weekend of the year. I don't think there's one weekend it's not. And, you know, people are coming in with their wet shoes and salt and, you know, you name it. And, you know, it was my recommendation in the RFP to tear all of that out and put new ones down. I'm not concerned that it is a subfloor issue. When they originally put that floor in 4 or 5 years ago, they stripped everything down, laid all new subfloor in it, and then put a water barrier over the subfloor and then glued down that floor. I think it's just the fact that it was wood that was on there. It was really subject to water damage.
With $50,000, knowing that it's 4,000 square feet, that could explain why you'd have a value of $50,000 on it. And also concerned, are we, if we've got flooring up half an inch, we've got a tripping hazard situation, is this something can be repaired before we get into heavy use season?
I'm hoping so. I've made it a mandatory pre-bid meeting for all contractors bidding on this. I think it's April 2nd is the pre-bid meeting, I want to say. It's April 2nd or 3rd, but it's early in April. And I'm not sure what the contractors are gonna say. I mean, sometimes people have gaps in their schedules early and they have large crews that can get in there and hammer it out, but I also am aware that there is the potential that we might not be able to find someone to do it soon. I'm gonna have to just cross that bridge when we get there. I don't know if we can temporarily sand some of those down to alleviate that hazard for the time being. But those are some options I've been going over.
Well, obviously, we don't want public using it if we got a tripping hazard situation, so.
Mhm.
Let's be hopeful we can get that repaired in the busy season.
Right.
And hopefully we don't have to cancel or make anybody make their change in their plans.
Yeah, that's a last resort for sure.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
All right, Mr. Showman is not here yet. So then the ARPA funds for the next generation housing is going to be a topic he wants to brief us on. So we will move on to the action items.
We got Community Development
I'm
Department.
sorry.
So I wasn't prepared to do any presentation, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have on the monthly report.
I have none. Anybody else?
Just keep it going. Keep it rolling.
All right.
Keep rolling.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Things are good.
Thank you, Deb. Now, we'll move on to the action items not already discussed and start with item B, a resolution to apply for the cost share grants in the DNR Targeted Runoff Management Program. Mr. Siebel, welcome back.
So the DNR offers grants. Usually we get cost share grants annually from the State Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. We get around $30,000 to $40,000, but when we get into certain farm projects that just cost a lot more, we have the ability to actually apply to DNR Targeted Runoff Management, the TRIM grant. And in this case, we have 2 farms that we're working with. Both of them want to put in or looking to put in a manure storage facility, and those can be quite costly. So we'll be looking to probably apply for 2 grants in that total cap. The maximum limit is $225,000 each. So it'll probably be 2 grants for that maximum amount. They are competitive grants. DNR requires a resolution by county board and all the stipulations on a lot of the whereases, and therefore be it resolves. But also the county requires, because this was not a budgeted item, and this is a major grant that we go through the resolution process. So Any specific questions I can answer?
Any questions or comments?
What farmer in town Hartford is applying for that, Gary?
Eugene, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the draft resolution?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Voting in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Paul. I don't think you're relieved yet, though, are you?
No.
Okay. All right, we'll now can move to consider the proposed changes to chapters 172 and 179 of the county code. Now, this received a great deal of discussion at last month's meeting. And I believe there is no objection expressed, or that I recall, whether it's an officer of the sheriff's department or certain qualified park employees who can issue the tickets. One of the sticklers in the discussion last time was the absence of a table or other reference that was available to the public regarding the structure of the fines and what the value of those fines would be. And I see nothing in here that explains that, or is this now part of chapter 172 as decided in the ordinance? I went up, I looked at 172, I couldn't find anything, but has this, is there some kind of a table or chart or reference to someone says, if you do this, this is what the fine's gonna be, and they're all posted on our website somewhere?
No, and there won't be. The way this works, and I spoke with the sheriff about this in detail, in great detail, actually, a few weeks ago, right after the meeting occurred. And I'll back up a little bit and explain, first of all, I think ultimately at the end of the day, what's going to happen is when signs are posted at these locations that indicate, what the rules are, there will be the amount of money posted. How this typically works is the code, the way it's drafted in chapter 1 indicates that throughout the code, there's a standard penalty for violation of ordinances. It's anywhere between $10 and $2,000. Then you take a look at chapter 172, 22, and that's the chapter on peace and good order. 172-22 talks about how the uniform citation method is adopted in Washington County and sets forth all the process and procedures there as to how tickets are written. And in that particular section, in subsection C, it references the uniform deposit and misdemeanor schedule of Washington County, which essentially says that for violations that occur within Washington County of ordinances, that's where you find that information, generally speaking. In talking to the sheriff's department, that's all computerized. There's no discretion on the part of a deputy, for example, to write you, Chairman, a $50 ticket and Supervisor Creefall a $1,000 ticket for the same offense. Right. So you're not going to find that in there. What happens is, even if you want to, what happens is a deputy would, or a parks employee would enter into the system. We have this violation here, and it pops up exactly what the violation is. Sheriff tells me that what happens is they set these amounts of money for ordinance violations based very much on what a similar state violation would be. And for example, let's say we were going to implement a new county ordinance that you can't spit on county sidewalks, okay? We have nothing like that now. So how do they decide what the penalties that's going to be? They look at state violations that might be similar in nature and say, okay, well, at the state level, maybe we look at that as if it's disorderly conduct or something like that, or vandalism. What does that cost? And that's essentially how they determine what that amount of money is. So it's a bit fluid. And so in the code, we reference this particular document or record, if you will, uniform deposit misdemeanor schedule. But in actuality, it's much like when we adopt an ordinance and we say, and we adopt the rules in chapter 59, such and such as amended. So it happens from time to time that may be amended, and then we don't have to come back to the code consistently and keep amending the code to adjust dollar amounts. So is the public aware? They will be when we post signage. Could they be aware? Talk to the sheriff's department. People, if they're concerned or have issues with any of the ordinance violations in the code, could always call the sheriff's department and say, what's the penalty for this, for example? And they'd be provided that information. So that's standard practice. That's how it's typically done. In terms of this particular ordinance that's before you, what you're really being asked to do is just adjust the titles of the individuals who are authorized to write the tickets. It doesn't go into the actual penalty or fee. Right now, that citation is a $50 violation. The reason we're crossing a little bit out of the code that references that is because it's really very poorly worded, and I touched on this last time, where it says the code shall be amended to provide for a $50 penalty. It's really an awkward wording, and you really wouldn't say that. You would just simply get the authorization and just amend that penalty one time, and then you're done. So that's why we're cleaning that up. Other than that, there are some outdated titles in this code that go back, and that's what this code intends to do, is update who exactly is working in the Parks Department, what are their titles, and who's authorized to come in and write tickets. And the other thing that is of note, and I think we touched on this a bit last time, was one of the things this process and procedure called to light was there was really no consistency between what the Sheriff's Department was doing with regard to these violations and the Parks Department. Now, regardless of what happens with this ordinance today that's before you, or even when it gets to the county board if it passes committee, is the Sheriff's Department and Parks Department have agreed to cooperate and coordinate how tickets and citations will be written. Sheriff's Department will essentially handle the administrative duties, will send the information. If a case has to go to court, ultimately, they'll take care of all of that and make appearances and so on. So we're pleased to report that we are able to at least get these two departments together and have them now coordinate this function. So it did shed some light on some inconsistencies that we really needed to fix. And that really benefits the public more than anything, because that's really where your problem was. Someone gets a ticket from the Sheriff's Department could be completely different than how it's doled out or handled by the Parks Department. And we needed to put a stop to that.
We're merging the procedures into one.
100% yes. And the sheriff has personally agreed to make his department available to work with the Parks Department to clean all that up.
Where does the health department come into this?
The health department?
The health officer is authorized to write citations.
Well, I don't think under, well, I don't,
That's not parking.
I don't know if, under- yeah, I wouldn't think it's parking tickets,
That'd
but
be for violations of
Yeah.
health ordinance.
yeah.
Someone for leaving himself in the weeds.
Yeah, and for that, we have chapter 8 in the code, and it's funny you should raise that because just not real long ago, we had an issue where they had to write a citation for a tattoo parlor, I think, that we had to go to have a hearing on, I think in the last couple of years or so. But they have specific authorities in state statute and specific rules they follow that are a bit different because they're enforcing some state codes and things like that.
I noticed that as part of this was the
Yeah.
health officer is authorized to write citations.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought-
Well, in chapter 172, I imagine that would be the case. So hopefully that provides a little bit more information
It
for
does,
you.
but if I recall, the whole thing regarding the amount of the fines was a real point of discussion
Right.
at the last month's meeting. And what we're saying is we're gonna have something posted, signage is there, sign a fine from this to this range. And if they have a real question, they can talk to the officer, whoever writes a citation, if they're there, they can find out exactly what that's going.
Well, in the code, there's a range, but on the sign, there will be the amount. So you'll know exactly what trouble you're in if you violate.
Okay, all right.
And so that will be very clear. That will be very clear. In the big picture, what I was trying to indicate was that we have this uniform citation and misdemeanor schedule, which is sort of a fluid document, which may be adjusted or changed around from time to time. Mainly a computerized document that the people can certainly access by certainly calling the Sheriff's Department, probably clerk of courts too. I shouldn't speak for them on that point, but I would imagine that if someone's really interested in finding out, violation by violation about the code, what that might run, there's a way to do that. But specifically for parks, we're going to let them know by posting signage. And Logan and I have had discussions about that as well. And I think that's very important that people know exactly what they're getting into if they're going to park illegally.
That's all gonna be in place for this season?
Yes,
The heavy usage season?
yes.
Yeah. Same thing with uniform traffic code. It varies. If you get a speeding ticket in Washington County, it may be different if you get a speeding ticket in the city of West Bend because of the fees that they charge.
Right.
So, and that's not properly posted. You get it when you get your ticket. It'll say the amount on there. So,
Yes. That used to be very clear.
Yeah.
It usually is very clear. Any other questions or comments, Randy? As such, then I guess we need a motion to amend sections 172.22 and 179.7 and forward to the full board for consideration. Is there a motion as such?
So moved.
We have a motion and second. Vote in favor of saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. Moving on to action item E, preliminary plat for Cedar Creek Estates Phase 3, Mr. Sebo, for your final encore of the day.
Yes, actually, it's phase two. But yeah, a couple months ago, you actually approved the final plat for phase one of Cedar Creek Estates. That was in the town of Polk. This one is actually in the village of Slinger, connected to that. And it kind of connects that one with an existing subdivision, Cedar Bluffs, in the village of Slinger. The site, and you can see it on the map, it's on Highway 60. As you go up the big hill, there's the big cell tower and stuff that's on there. So there's 124 lots. We are objecting authority. So very limited in what we can say or do, but yeah, 124 lots, or 6 outlots. I know we have a representative and a developer here. If you have any specific questions, but
That's a substantial piece of development.
yes, yeah.
And the lot sizes again are averaging what?
0.34 to 1.1 acres. At 3/8 or a third of an acre up to a little over an acre. Yep. Which is fairly standard for municipal lots.
I noticed some digging in there now. Are they using the gravel that's on the property to fill in or use for fill?
Correct, we had a borrow pit set up. We used a lot of the gravel for the road base, and that's what we're planning on using also for the road base and the second phase.
Now, is that gonna go all the way to the, I don't know, the east side of that pile farm, you know where the driveway is?
Yep.
Goes all the way in the other side of that driveway too?
Yeah, the pile farm is basically the center of the phase two. So it'll go all the way to the cell tower.
Yep.
And all the way north, basically to Highway C.
Is there a motion for no objection to this proposal?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I will vote to those in, vote to no objection to the proposal. Names in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same size nay. Now I guess we have completed all of our regular business. We need to wait for the county executive. Unless someone has noticed something I've missed on the agenda.
I can certainly talk about these two items. I wrote the report, so I can talk to them.
All right, do you know how adamant he was about being here for this presentation or?
Well, he'd like to be here. He talked to me, and I just texted him a couple minutes ago, and so far he hasn't answered. He had a presentation and a meeting at 7:15, but thought he'd be here by now. It's an hour. So I'm gonna step out and call him and see, and if you could start, that'd be great.
Sure.
Roll on music, we'll do
Yeah.
soft shoes. How you doing with the boss gone?
Good. Oh, yeah. It's all good.
Let's say who's gone?
Yeah. No, I didn't say that.
Thanks, Paul. You have a nice day too.
Might be my last, but yeah.
Well, if you want to go ahead, just give, I have no idea what depth Josh wants to get into, but I'm sure you can give us all the background that we need.
Do you
So,
want to take the discussion item first, the ARPA funds?
yes,
Okay. So this is part of the $26 million ARPA guidance. It allows for the lost revenue. And I worked with Margie Hammers to look at the amount that is available for that lost revenue. It's 16 million. And of that 16 million, 10 million of that revenue is being dedicated to the Next Generation Housing Initiative. This request or this report is really based on $250,000 of that 10 million. We have a Next Generation Housing Coalition committee that reviewed and approved the request for $250,000 to be used to assist our cities and villages to start their process of developing the next generation housing developments. So I've been working with the cities and the villages in Washington County, meeting with them on the possibility of next generation housing developments throughout the county. We have determined that there'll be 2 pilot developments, one in the city of Hartford, one in the village of Jackson. The rest of the municipalities, except for the village of Richfield, have identified future next generation housing sites. And this is seed money for them, so $250,000, it'll be $50,000 to the city of West Bend, and then the villages of Newburgh, Slinger, Quascom, and Germantown, they'll get $50,000 each to utilize for engineering services or planning services or environmental due diligence that they have to do, like a wetland delineation or soil tests or even land acquisition. So I'll be setting up project management teams with each one of these municipalities, and we'll be talking about how this $50,000 could be used. And to be clear, the $50,000 is not going to be handed to them if they're using professional services. We would determine what the professional services are going to be. Let's say the city of West Bend wanted to hire an engineering firm. We would work with them, put this together, and then once the project is done and approved by the city, then the county would pay that invoice. Unless, of course, it's an actual land acquisition that municipality wants to take on, then that money would be provided to that local government.
So what you're saying is we're not just gonna give them a check, $50,000 and I'll go do it. We've got oversight on it. You do the
Yes.
project, you come back with a report of what you did and your bills, and then we'll disperse the funds.
Correct, yes. We're gonna have a project management team set up for each one of these municipalities as we work through this process. But with Hartford and Jackson's sites being the pilots, we really did want to have an opportunity to start working with each one of these municipalities about their priority sites. So we actually have 46 potential sites throughout Washington County, and those have been inventoried. And I have a work group, a subgroup from that committee that's going to be working on ranking all of those sites. So ideally, the priority site for each one of these municipalities aligns with the overall priority sites for the county. And then it provides them an opportunity to get started, to start thinking about, what are the next steps for them to develop their sites.
So this is really funds to defer the cost of their exploratory planning and everything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. This is not, you said, this isn't gonna be used to go buy land or start putting in water and sewer system. This is strictly the exploratory process.
Land acquisition could be a part of it.
Or it could be.
It could be, yes, but mainly it'd be engineering services, planning services, surveying, environmental due diligence type services, which is typically would be done, especially if sewer and water needs to be extended. There's a cost to having engineering and planning services to undertake that effort.
And this is being managed through you and your office?
Yes,
Okay. You're the go-to person?
I am the go-to person.
Okay. Now, you're on this committee.
Correct.
Any questions or comments you have to add?
Just that it's very well organized and there's
Well,
a
of
lot of interest.
I'm curious, as a resident of Germantown, how has the village responded to this?
Oh my gosh, all the villages and cities have responded very positively to this. Yes, I've been pleasantly surprised, well, not really surprised, but very happy with all the meetings that I've had. I've sat down with every single municipality and we looked at their comprehensive plan and their future land uses, where it makes sense for future development. Does it align with the next generation housing goals that we have, and identify specific parcels that could potentially be that next generation housing? It's been a very well organized process, and I've been really happy with the outcomes that I've had with all of them.
Well, again, as a resident of Germantown, I'm pleased to know that the village is moving forward with a positive
Absolutely.
attitude on this. At last week's executive committee meeting, Executive Showman explained to that group the Richfield situation. And just based on the way that whole village is organized, they're basically prohibited, as I recall. Or if maybe that's not the right term, but they've kind of restricted themselves out of this kind of project.
They have, in their comprehensive plan, they have a vision for their municipality and they're following that vision.
And this would not include, that would not include a project like this.
Yeah, when I met with the village of Richfield, they determined that they were not going to identify next generation housing, but they are very supportive of this effort, and they do have a representative on the committee.
I can add from just from a constituent perspective, I hear questions out there of kind of trying to define the difference actually of the next gen affordable housing and low income housing. That I think that that has been an opportunity for me because I'm on the committee to be able to clarify that.
This is not subsidized.
Right.
This is not subsidized. Yeah, this is really the teachers, the police officers, these are the workforce in Washington County.
And they seem very relieved to hear that it's not subsidized, low income, row housing, whatever.
Right, right.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we haven't really talked a lot about, it's something that interests me, is I'm gonna downsize in the next 5 years, and I wanna stay in Washington County.
Right.
And that type of housing would be very desirable for me to go into.
Yeah.
So I think, we're looking at some of our, as we downsize, as we get older, we wanna remain part of the best county in the state of Wisconsin. So.
And that is all part of this. I mean, it's all about the churn and making, homes available. So as you move into a smaller downsized home, then that provides an opportunity for someone else. So.
And you gotta find someone to buy your estate.
Oh, that won't be a problem.
Mr. Furno,
He's on his way.
All right,
He's on
he's on his
his
way.
way. Yeah, I'm very sorry.
Okay.
Should we start the music and you're gonna dance for it?
Yeah, or take a 5-minute break.
We can have a 5-minute recess.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
Yeah.
Until such time as the chair of the executive shows up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's just take 5 minutes out of here. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad, for.
No. I know these programs, and I know Josh has
I'm
specific
glad
things
you're
that he wants
determined
to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
I know.
Participating in a positive.
It's all good.
I just, they're gonna fight it all together. They probably still have some people that are gonna fight it anyway.
They're all over the change. But I think too. Are we still on, Mike?
Mike,
Are we muted?
are we live or muted?
We are not muted, so let me get it quick.
Because we're not in session right now.
Yeah, go ahead. County Executive has joined us now. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you for
Ms.
waiting for
Silsky
me.
gave us a good general briefing on background, but I know you wanted to be part of this presentation this morning. We'll pick up on the ARPA funds, and then we'll go from that to the cap resolution, the brownfield RLF developments.
Wonderful. Well, I really wanted to just be here to be able to answer questions from you, but also wanted to make clear to you that as we make decisions with the balance of the $10 million, which is going to be allocated to next generation housing, we'll come and talk to you specifically about each one of those expenditures. So this $250,000 is one example of that. As we specifically allocate other funds, we'll be coming back to committee, whichever relevant committee, to make sure you're aware of where those dollars are going as well. So I wanted to make that clear to you. And otherwise, I'm sure Deb handled the rest of the agenda item fine.
She gave us a very thorough briefing and answered our questions in good detail. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, then we'll move past that item to go back to the action item. D, the capital improvement plan, brownfield RLF investment.
Okay, so as we continue with the brownfields redevelopment program, we had our first county revolving loan fund approved by the SRC as well as the EDWC revolving loan fund committee. It was for $300,000. You probably have heard it through the media for the redevelopment of the Shopko site, which is very exciting. That does take up a lot of the $1 million that was originally allocated from the county board for the county brownfields revolving loan fund. And so the request before you is to replenish that $300,000. The $300,000 for the Shopko redevelopment is a forgivable loan, so it will not be revolved back into the revolving loan fund. So this is an effort to replenish the revolving loan fund to the full $1 million.
Well, for the point of discussion, let's have a motion to accept the resolution as presented, then we'll get into discussion with questions.
Make a motion.
Second.
Michelle, all right. Questions and comments?
I think it's a great program that's working. And we need to keep that fund replenished. And because there's more and more coming into the queue. And like we say, every time we remediate, I guess would be a brownfield, it's saving farmland. So it's plain and simple, we don't develop any farmland, we take what we have and use that before we even look at, the pristine farmland. So I think this is a great program and we should continue it.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's that area downtown Germantown, right behind Main Street, south of Main Street. That was all brownfields development that was part of this program. And now that's now gonna be part of my new district. I've driven through there and there's some beautiful homes in there.
The Saxony Village site?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I couldn't
south of the
remember name,
railroad? Yeah, that's wonderful. That is a great success story.
I don't know how many trains go through there on a daily basis. That would be a bit of a deterrent for rest and relaxation. I know I hear the trains late at night sometimes if the wind's out of the east, but that is beautifully done. I mean, very, very nice area.
Yep.
I mean,
I'm
this
happy
is
with
not
that.
any kind of no one could be negative against the housing that has gone in there. It's a beautiful homes.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Well, we know that individually.
Yeah.
Beyond that discussion, we won't bring up names here.
And again, hearing from the community, I think you see things on the Nextdoor app and just out and about talking, and it's like, why are they looking to do more building? And what are they going to do with all those empty spaces, all those? So this just feeds that concept in the community that we are.
Yep, and you can just see from on page 2, the return on investment is absolutely phenomenal. The investment that the county has put in with the 1.2 million so far, and what we're getting out of it. Great investment in the county.
And there's a number of projects that some we've highlighted that have been kind of premiered in different publications nationwide, like the grade school down here.
Yeah, the school project,
Park
the school project, yeah.
That's one, but others that are kind of under the radar, like the Kmart in Hartford.
Yeah, that looks.
That was a smaller amount, right?
That
But
was a
it
smaller amount.
did some preliminary work that without, I think it was $40,000.
It was about that, yeah, about
Without that
40,000.
40 grand, that big project never happened.
And the Rincon project
Oh, yeah,
in
Rincon.
Hartford is another big success story that had we not started with these funds, had these funds not been available, that may not have actually succeeded, so.
Well, and I think with projects like that, you look at the brand new Fleet Farm in West Bend here, for example. I mean, that's all, now it didn't happen to be farmland, but that's all green space that's all now gone, where they could have redeveloped here, obviously for a multitude of reasons. In that case, they didn't, but instead of doing the Festival of Foods downtown, it could just as easily have been towards Slinger, right in the middle of a cornfield, and we lose again that way, so.
And like the Ponderosa in Hartford, that's getting reused.
Yeah, it's perfect.
For culverts.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen unless festival happens.
Right,
It's
right.
just a chain
Yeah,
effect.
it's catalytic.
And I think I did preview this at county board last month. I think if you remember, I mentioned
Talked about it.
that this was gonna come, so.
So we vote to amend it, as I understand it, and then from here it goes back to the board for resolution made, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or discussion?
My only request is that when it gets to board, if one of the members of the committee would make sure to mention that we approved the expenditure last month for the shop. Okay, and then during that conversation, you mentioned this was gonna come. And so everybody on the board who isn't as involved as you are with the committee, can remember that we told you it was coming, it's here, you should approve it.
Right.
There it is, yeah.
Well, Mr. Creefall won't be here. I guess I'm the only given that we know for sure will be here. And we know she's gonna win, but we can't promise that at this
Does
point.
that come in April, does it come in April 19th or it'll be after that?
It'll be the 19th, it'll be the last.
I'll be there.
Oh, we'll be the last one. Okay, it'll be the last seating of the current. board.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
Very good.
And we intentionally did that so that because it's possible we have a third of the board who doesn't know anything about this. So we
Yes.
wanted to get this
Right.
board to approve it.
I'll be more than glad to preface the comments at night.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. And I believe that concludes our business today. The next meeting date has not been as yet determined. And the committee structure for the next meeting has not as yet been determined. So we don't know where we're going. Anyway, that will be the fall. We are adjourned. Thank you for being here.
What are you doing on the remodeling down there?
They're a little behind.